Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you. Really excited about our today's session. And how about you?
I'm good. Excited as well.
Great. And a few words about you for our attendees. As a public persona within the SEO industry, Mordy was the founding host of the In Search SEO podcast, is currently an organizer of SEO Chat on Twitter and co-host of the Behind the SEOs podcast. Besides, Mordy was our special guest at Serpstat Chat on Twitter with the topic of best practices of SEO for Wix websites. Also, you can find Mordy frequently sharing his SEO insights on Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, and at conferences around the globe. And today, he has something new to share with us. So, Mordy, you are very welcome. Here you are. And guys, enjoy the topic.
All right. Okay, let's get into it. It's gonna the always awkward moment of sharing my screen. Hold on, just one quick second. There we go. Can you see my screen? Hoping you can. Okay. Today we're talking about what's new SEOs, or if you're not a new SEO, if you're an older SEO, should know about building a new website. My name is Mordy Oberstein, as you heard. I'm the head of SEO branding at Wix. I love podcasting. I'm the host of the Serpstat podcast, which you can find on the Wix SEO Learning Hub. I'm the host of the SEO Rant podcast. I co-host the Edge of the Web's weekly news podcast. I love podcasting, so check that out. Little plug. Anyway, well, I was thinking about what am I going to talk today, and there's when it comes to building a new site for new SEOs, there's a lot of typical information that's out there, and I really do not want to deal with any of it. I think I found it boring. I think you'll probably find it boring. I think you can go to a blog post, take a quick look at whatever blog post is ranking for doing SEO on a new website, and read it. So during this session, things like doing good keyword research, or choosing a proper domain name, or you should do on-site optimization. I'm assuming you know all of that. I'm taking that as a given. You have that. You got that. If you don't have that, that's okay too. There are plenty of great blog posts where you can read that. I don't think I need to cover that so much in the webinar. Pardon me just one second. I have a really bad cold. Okay, let's get into it. So what I do want to talk about though are what I call them the foundations of doing SEO on a new website. Again, outside of those like outside of those very given sort of topics. So I want to talk about setting the right expectations, how to plan a new website, where your input should be as an SEO, and then tracking things, how you should go about that, a framework for tracking a new website. Because all of this is a little bit trickier because, as I'll mention throughout the course of this webinar, you have no context. There is no context. It's a new website, and that presents a whole heap of problems or opportunities or whatever you want to call them. Before I do that, I just want to point out, like, beyond all of those things, expectations and planning, the first thing you really need to do when you're working with a new website is understand the heck out of that CMS. And there's so many reasons why. I'm going to try to show you really quickly or relatively quickly with real examples of why that is, because it's one of the most beneficial things you can really do is understand the ins and outs of that CMS, whatever CMS the website is built on, because that's going to allow you to plan better. It's going to be able to track. It's going to allow you to pretty much have greater input on the website and really showcase your value as an SEO. I'll explain to you what I mean. Overall, what I mean is understanding everything, like the defaults, the limits. The limits are really important, by the way. It's really important to know where a CMS, and every single CMS has limits. And you need to know what they are, what the opportunity costs are, and where those limits are, so you can work around them. I kind of feel like part of our job, Crystal Carter, who I work with over at Wix, she's the head of SEO communications. She likes to talk about SEOs, and their job is to work around things. And I very much agree with that. So knowing the limits of a CMS, knowing the SEO tools, obviously, but also things like the integrations, the automations, the defaults that are there, and the design functionality is super important. I'll get into all of that. And there's really no, you can watch videos, you can read the documentation around the CMS. There's really no way of actually getting in there other than you actually diving in and getting into the nitty-gritty of it and really playing around with that CMS. And even if that means spinning up a free website, most CMSs offer some kind of free website, spinning up a free website, messing around with it before you actually start work on that new site that you're working on. And that's fundamentally because SEO touches everything. I'll quote another colleague of mine, not the Ellie Mouth, head of SEO on the Wix product, says SEO touches everything all the time. It's one of his catchphrases, and it's really true. whether it's design, whether it's performance, whether it's everything. And inevitably, at some point, so it's content, it's SEO is going to factor in some way, in some significant way at some point. So you really need to understand the whole CMS. I'll give you some like concrete examples. Like let's take design. I'm going to focus heavily on design throughout this because design is one of these real areas where you can really muck things up, and you don't want to muck up the website. So listen, I'm going to work with Wix. I'm biased. I work for Wix, so I'm going to use Wix. Okay. Wix, the main editor is adaptive. It's not responsive. There is another editor for a more souped up editor for designers. That one is responsive, but most websites on Wix are built on the main editor, and it's adaptive and it's not responsive. Great. We have an algorithm that reshuffles things around for mobile so that it kind of works, and it does for the most part. However, and I worked at Wix for a year before I figured this out. There's something called a strip. When you design a Wix website, there's a strip. A strip is sort of like a text box. Imagine a text box. You can put whatever you want in this text box, though, not just text. You can put images, videos, in this case, a podcast player, inside of this strip. The strip is responsive. In other words, if you build the entire web page inside of strips, you've essentially created a responsive web page. So the editor is adaptive, but if you use this little strip thing, it's responsive. And that's a design thing. Strips are a design element. If I didn't dive into the design of the CMS, I would never have known that. I'll give you another one. Defaults. Okay, CMSs, particularly closed CMSs, have heaps and heaps of defaults that you need to know about, need to explore. I'll give you another example just to showcase what I mean. Like, what am I talking about defaults, and why is that actually significant? So just as an example of one thing, because there's a gazillion things I can focus on. So again, using a Wix example, we automatically cache your pages, which is great for performance. Okay, the problem is, well, not the problem. The reason why we automatically cache pages is because we built the website. It's our pages. We understand what the pages are. We designed those pages. So we can say we're going to cache them because we understand exactly what's on the page. However, if you interject custom code, if we have a dev tool, you can add custom code with the dev tool. If you do that, well, then we don't understand the page anymore in the same way. Now, we don't want to start caching things we don't understand. You'll say, why is that? Well, let's say on this page, you interjected custom code to add a stock ticker, a stock widget. When we're caching the page and we're updating it every 2 hours, it's a stock ticker. It should be live real time, meaning if we're caching it every 2 hours, the widget's going to be outdated when users look at it. We don't want to cache that. So when we see there's custom code, we say, hey, we're smart. We get this. We don't want to necessarily cache this. So we don't. Meaning if you're adding custom code to the page, we're no longer going to cache it, but maybe you do want it cached. You do want the performance benefits. So you need to understand that default and then say, okay, for this page, I'll manually implement the caching because I know the CMS in this case isn't automatically caching it. And that's because you understood the nitty-gritty defaults that come with the CMS. So there's one example of understanding, like really important, why you need to understand the defaults of the CMS. Another really great example of this, so we optimize the robots.txt file. Shopify optimizes their robot.txt file. I'm sure Squarespace does. I don't know. I haven't looked at theirs. One of the things that we do is we block Pedalbot because Pedalbot is a server disaster. They love hitting the server, and it's not efficient. It's not effective. So we block it automatically in the robot.txt file. Let's say for whatever crazy reason, okay, all your traffic comes from Hawaii mobile devices. So Pedalbot's really important for you. That's where you're getting all your traffic. If you didn't understand the default of your CMS, you'd be blocking Pedalbot. So you need to understand the defaults. It's really, really, really important. Next is automation. Okay, when you're working with the CMS, oftentimes there's going to be automation, whether it be within the CMS itself or through a plugin or whatnot, depending on which CMS you're working with. Just to give you an example of what am I talking about. So you might spin up a new website. It might be an e-com website. You have 1,000 products. You need to create product structure data markup, and you'll spend hours creating this thing. Okay, but if you're using Wix, we create all that for you. Why are you wasting your time? Meaning, if you understood the automation of the platform, you wouldn't have wasted your time, hours of your time, creating structure data markup. You would have said, okay, it's already there. If I want to modify and edit it, I can do that. I can do it at the folder level, and I can customize it in 5 quick clicks. Understand the automation that's available to you. There's so many things in SEO that can be automated. If you don't appreciate the automation that's available to you, whatever platform you're using, you could be wasting extreme amounts of time, which is never good. Just another really quick example. So 301 redirects. For certain page types, we static pages, product pages, online course pages, event pages, we automatically redirect if you change the URL. So you don't have to worry about that. So again, like things, understand the platform, understand the CMS, because you could be saving yourself a ton of time. Lastly, availability. Understand what's available to you so that you could do things like automate things. Understand the availability within the CMS. CMSs are generally cavernous. And what you think you know is CMS, I'll go out on a limb and say, unless you've been working within a CMS for a real long time, you don't know the CMS. Okay, I've been working with Wix for 2 years now. I still learn things every day about it. It's cavernous. Understand what's in there. What you're looking at here is, oh, there's a little button all the way at the top of the editor. That's an entire full stack dev tool, which I probably wouldn't have known unless you pointed this out to me, because it's a little tiny button all the way at the top of the menu. Because again, CMSs are cavernous. And no, not every UX is perfect. It's like, I think this should be an enormous button. It's not. It's a little tiny menu at the top of the page, which lets you, customize the entire site's JavaScript code. Big deal. You might not have known about it. Understand what's available. And I'll say this, understand what's available in terms of analytics, particularly in a GA4 world. If you don't want to be in a GA4 world, we kind of have to be, but if you want to accent that with some good old UA3, GA3 kind of data, so CMSs are a great place for that, right? CMSs generally offer you some type of analytics, and it's generally mimicked after Google Analytics 3. So if you're missing that kind of data, check out your CMS. Often, because CMSs are the actual website itself, they can do some pretty cool things. Analytics, definitely dive into it. In this particular case, you're looking at a Wix site and the automatic bot logs, because again, it's our servers, so it's no big deal. We just show you the bot log data and we just visualize it for you. You literally have to do nothing to get bot log data. So that's really cool. So understand what's inside of your CMS in terms of availability, and particularly in the analytics side. It's going to be pretty cavernous as well. All right, that out of the way. You need to understand your CMS. I can do a whole webinar about that. There are certain foundational things you have to do in working with a new website in particular. And the first thing I'm going to talk about are expectations. Because if you don't set realistic expectations, you are not, how do I say this nicely? You're going to be offering advice to your client, to whatever team you're working with, if it's internal, and it's going to be eventually a disaster. Set the right expectations on the outset and be realistic about them. And I'll get into this in a little bit, what I mean by this. But generally speaking, I think the timeline of events that SEOs generally talk about is a little misconstrued and a little unrealistic. I'll get to it. All right. The first thing in setting expectations is to understand the niche. I don't think we talk about this enough. The Google SERP is an ecosystem. It's not like a list of URLs and a bunch of SERP feeds. It's an actual living, breathing dynamic. It's an ecosystem. Google talks about it that way. We should probably pay attention when Google talks about it that way. Let me give you a case here. So I'm working with this website. They sell online fudge, and they rank number like 7 or 8 for the keyword buy fudge online. Great. I guess that's pretty good. The problem is it ranks underneath this massive carousel of shopping listings that are pulled in from Google Merchant Center. So yay, it's 7 or 8 on the SERP, or 6 or 5 or whatever it is, but it's underneath this giant carousel thing. Like, that's not great for clicks. By the way, just the other day or yesterday, Google officially went with continuous scrolling on desktop, which would help this website in this particular case. So that's another thing. Like, keep up to date on the niche, on the ecosystem, because things do change regularly. But you need to understand what the challenges the website's facing. If you were just to look at rank tracking data, you'd be like, yeah, all right, we're ranking number 7. That's not bad at all. Okay, but it's underneath this giant. You probably want to make sure that the listing is inside of Google Merchant Center, inside of Google Shopping, so that theoretically it can be pulled in here in this massive carousel. Understand the ecosystem that the niche exists within. Really important. Secondly, resources. You need to understand the resources that are available to this. It's a new website. It's not like they're an established website. They understand where they're going. They understand their budgets. They understand things are pretty settled. They have a plan. They're maybe updating the plan. Their roadmaps every quarter. Fine. That's all normal. It's a brand new website. Everything's up in the air. They're paying for dev. They're paying for design. They're paying for content. They're paying for promotion. They're paying for marketing. They're paying for you. Understand what you're going to need, but consider the fact that there's a heck of a lot of resources being expended at one time. It's a high spend time for a website. So be realistic with what you're asking for and when you're asking for it. Because again, if it's a new website, the business may not be generating revenue, or it may not be generating revenue from the digital space, because it's highly possible that they're coming from the non-digital space, moving to digital, and they do have a revenue base. In order to be realistic with your resources, and this is a little bit cliche, I guess, you have to understand the business goals, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and where SEO fits into that. Right? It's highly possible that predominantly the website is going to earn traffic and revenue from YouTube or from whatever other social platform. And that's fine. There's more than one way to earn revenue other than SEO. Take that into consideration. And this part's not cliche. Take into consideration the brand goals. I don't think we talk about that at all. We talk about business goals, revenue goals. Okay, but part of that is a significant part of that, before you even get to that, is the branding. Creating brand awareness, creating brand messaging, creating brand sentiment. All of that needs to be created. That's very heavy on spend at times, especially in the beginning. You need to factor that in. You need to consider that, and you need to make sure that what you're doing is aligned with those brand goals. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. Most importantly, with expectations, this chart here is not normal. That's not how it typically works. Everyone goes on Twitter and they share hockey stick charts. Oh yeah, I got 1 million impressions in a week. You guys see what I did? Not normal. SEO is a really slow burn. This is normal. This is a year's worth of data. That's kind of normal. And the reason that is because again, it's a brand new website. There is no context. The web is semantic. And you are semantic-less. You have nothing. You haven't showed Google anything yet. You need to slowly create context for the website. It's kind of like, a courting period where you're going out with someone. You get to know them slowly. They get to know you better. You trust each other a little more. You take it to the next level. Maybe you start ranking number 1, 2, or 3. But that takes a long time for things to settle. Google may kind of misunderstand what the website's really about and start ranking for things that are not really relevant for you. We'll talk about more about that later as well. It can take a good year for the website to really settle. I know in SEO we often say, 6 months. You got traffic in 6 months. You're probably, if you're doing a good job in a relatively, mildly competitive niche, start getting the first seeds of traffic in 6 months. Is the website going to be sustainable and thriving as a business on that traffic after 6 months? I do not think so. After a year, that'll probably start to happen. So you need to make sure that the site owner, whoever it is that you're working with, understands that. And make sure that you understand that when you're setting those expectations. Which leads me to my next point. Part of the problem with setting expectations is us. We get very excited. It's a nice brand new website. It's interesting. There's a lot of potential there. And we need to temper our own expectations, because sometimes we don't temper our own expectations. We share these unrealistic, untempered expectations with site owners, which ends up becoming a minor disaster. One of these expectations that I want to bring out is that you cannot rank for everything that you want to rank for. I have never worked on a website where I have ranked for every single query that I wanted to rank for. You know why? Because it's kind of a zero-sum game in a way. There's a couple of slots on the SERP that bring through clicks. I'm doing SEO on the website. You're doing SEO on the website. Great. You know what's also happening? The other websites that are also competing to rank, they're also doing SEO on their website. And you're not always going to win. And it's particularly harder because, again, you don't have context. It's a semantic web and you're a semantic-less. It's a brand new website. It's going to take time, and you're not going to be able to rank for everything for a very, very long time, if at all, if ever. But even the majority wise, you're not going to be able to rank for these things for a long time. And you have to be realistic with that. Which leads to my next point. Zero search volume is not a problem. It's not. All of your content is one song. I know SEOs, we want to see that there's a search volume attached to the keyword that we're targeting because we need to bring in traffic. All of your content is like Neil Young songs. They all kind of sound the same. They're all one song. What you do with one piece of content lets you build on that and do the next stage, lets you do the next piece of content. So you might start off with a piece of content that might not get any traffic or much traffic. It might not be traffic worthy. But what it does do is that it lets you write that next piece of content, which does bring in traffic. And again, keep that in context with the semantic understanding of the web, right? Google doesn't know who you are. They don't know what your identity is. They don't know what you write about. They don't know where they should place you. There's other websites that do whatever it is you want to rank for, and they do have authority. They do have quality content. You need to start showing Google that you have that. So if a piece of content doesn't bring in traffic, it doesn't mean that it has no SEO value. It might have a lot of SEO value in getting Google to start seeing what you talk about, who you are, and the fact that you do that in a quality way. Because quality is a domain level metric. Particularly, you know this with the helpful content update. Google said, hey, we have a new helpful content algorithm. It looks at the website overall. It says, hey, these pages are great, but the ton of pages are not helpful. The unhelpful pages can impact the helpful pages rankings. It's all one song when it comes to content. Also, and I've talked about this a little bit earlier, understand that you're working with a business, and a business is a brand at whatever level. And every business has brand goals, how they want to be perceived, the sentiment they want to create, the public face they want to present. And while you and your keyword research and whatever it is that you're doing might say, I want to create content for this, and that, the brand might say, we don't want to go in that direction. That's not what we want to be talking about. That's not what we want to present ourselves. That's not what we want to be doing as a brand. Forget bringing, yes, we understand it'll bring in traffic, but traffic isn't everything, especially when you're thinking long-term. And brand, as someone who does a lot of branding, is a very, very long-term game. So you have to take into consideration that you might be creating all this content, and 6 months later, the site owner's like, what are you doing? We don't want to present ourselves around these topics this way. We understand that it brings in traffic, but that's not good for our brand. So you need to think about the brand as an SEO. Last thing about expectations, I'll just say this now. Indexing is going to be getting harder. If you've been paying attention, then I will say the last 5-6 months, I'm not good with time, it could be longer. Indexing has been harder. Google's getting pickier. Google's understanding the web better. It could say we don't want to index things as well. And things are getting in and out of the index at greater rapid speed. It's getting a little trickier. Things that you thought were settled and were in the index, all of a sudden they're not in the index. With a new site, it's probably going to be worse. Because again, Google doesn't fully understand you yet. So you're going to I would expect to have indexation, not problems, but indexation struggles at times, particularly in this current ecosystem and environment. All right, on to planning. Expectations are done. Now let's get into the planning phase. And I am going to, again, like if you want to look for like the basics around planning a new website in SEO, there's plenty of blog posts about that. I don't need to do this. We're here for unique content, which is a good lesson about content in general. When you're planning, start with the homepage. John Mueller was talking about this the other day. The most important pages on your site matter the most. They can impact what happens with the other pages on your site. The most important page on your website is the homepage. From every perspective, if you're a link builder, it's the most important because you're getting the most links to the homepage. If you're someone on the technical side of SEO, you love performance and core web vitals and blah, blah. Most of the core web vitals data comes from the homepage because it gets the most traffic. From a content point of view, it's the only page or one of the only pages on the website where you can explicitly tell not only your clients or customers or users, people, but Google who you are, what you do, and who you target explicitly. So it's a really important page. And I'll say, as someone who comes from the content side of the SEO world, having a good identity on the homepage can help you give yourself confines and borders for the rest of the content you create on the website. So if you structure the website, the homepage in a very methodical, clear, explicit manner, and you create a lot of strong identity, when you're going to the blog and you're creating blog posts and you think back to the homepage, it's a good way of checking yourself. Wait a second. Is this topic or whatever it is that I'm writing about really connected to the identity I created on the homepage? If it's not, don't write about it. I'll say this, I once did a study internally. I looked at 1,000 homepages. And I wanted to know one thing. If I looked at the homepage, could I understand what this website does? 70% of the websites I looked at, 700 websites, I had no clue what they did. I read the homepage. I really looked at it. I gave it a go. I had no clue. Get the homepage right. It sounds easy, but it's a lot harder than it is. And it's really, really important. 2, understand. I keep talking about this because, well, it's kind of where the universe I live in. But when you're planning, you need to actually understand the brand. They might have a strong social media presence. What are they doing on social media? What are they talking about on social media? Who's following them? What kind of people are following them? Who are they following? Are they in the news? What's being talked about them? What are people saying about them? What are they focusing on? Who works there? What kind of people? Get an understanding of who you're dealing with when you're planning a website, when you're building a website, so that you can better understand what kind of website they want to create from an SEO point of view, also from a content point of view, from all kinds of points of views. Understand who you're working with. And when I say know the brand, to be a little more explicit, I mean understand their goals, the persona, the tone they want to take. Okay, you're an SEO. I kind of feel SEO should be heavily involved in content, if not creating content at times. If you're good at writing, you understand the tone they want. Who's their audience? What problems do they have? What's their market role? Because again, it might not be that they're a new business. I used to work for a property management company 20 years ago. They were a major property management company in New York City. They owned 50 apartment buildings in the heart of New York. They were around since the 1970s. They only spun up a decent website, I don't know, like 3 years ago. They are a market leader in their niche. They are new to the digital space, but they're a market leader. Now, as a branding person and a content person, I can tell you that a market leader needs to speak differently than somebody who's breaking into the industry. The expectations from the audience are different. The tone is different. What they write about is different. How they present themselves is different. You need to understand, if you're going to be creating a website and you're going to work on the content side with that new website, what their role in the market is. Also, because, as I mentioned before, it takes time for a new site to settle, then it means you need to think about the other channels that are supporting the site until the organic really takes off, and well beyond. It could be the organic takes off and their social presence still stays the same, and it's still bringing the same amount of revenue, if not more. But what are they going to do? Oh, we got organic search traffic. Let's forget about social. You need to make sure the website is a place where these other channels can come and converge. I'll give you like maybe not the best example, but a kind of a really clear example. Let's say that until you get your SEO efforts really underway and over the next year, the website says we're going to double down. We're new. We need traffic and revenue. We're going to double down on Instagram and TikTok. I don't really know what TikTok is. I'm too old. But they're going to do that. And they're bringing in all these people from Instagram and TikTok, however the heck you do that. And let's say you as an SEO, like, oh, you know what search engines love? Bots love text. I'm going to have so much text here. Text. But these users are coming from very visual platforms, and they get to the website and they're looking and they're wondering, why am I here? Clearly, this website doesn't get me. When you're creating a new website, and because the website is relying on other channels to support itself until organic takes off, you need to make sure that when users come to that website, the website supports who they are and what they need from the content and from the functionality of the website overall. I was maybe debating not to put this in here. I kind of feel like structure and hierarchy is pretty basic. You need to make sure to think about the structure and the hierarchy. You need to think about the structure and the hierarchy now, and you need to think about what's going to be in the future for the website. I'll get to that again a little more in a second. And for a new website, you need to be prepared to rework that. You can stage the site, you can A/B test the site, you can do whatever you want with the site. Site gets going, momentum starts happening, organic search traffic starts coming in, social traffic starts coming in, whatever traffic comes in. The business starts to, grow or pivot, right? Every new business, think of a new website as a new business a little bit. If there is a brand new business or it's a brick and mortar going online, it's new in the digital space, it's going to have to pivot. As it pivots, it may need to restructure some things. So be prepared to reevaluate that structure and hierarchy, or the sections of the website, or how you've gone about organizing the website in whatever way, to whatever extent. Also, when you're planning a new website, you need to really understand the underpinnings of the website. And I'll explain why, but you need to understand it from technical implementation. And that goes back to what I'm talking to before about how the CMS you're working on works. Canonicals is a great example. Different platforms do different things with canonicals. Wix self-canonicalizes automatically every page, which is generally great, but sometimes maybe that's not what you want. So understand that, and understand what the underpinnings from a technical point of view. I'll go back to design. Understand how the site is built from a design point of view. Have input on that. Understand what's going on, right? If you're looking, oh my God, the core LCP is terrible. What's going on here? But you didn't realize that when they designed the website, they put a giant image in the background But background images, Morty, that doesn't count for LCP. You're right, except that if you leave space for the header and it's not a 100% the background, then it doesn't. Then it does count. It's not a background. It's an image. So what you think is a background is actually an image for LCP. Understand how the website's being designed. Are they using PNGs? Are they using GIFs? Those are kind of heavy. Are they being compressed? If they're being compressed, are they going down? How far are they going down, right? You compress a PNG versus you compress a JPEG, two different things. Understand the design of the website. It's really, really important. It's kind of where I think things get really mucked up. You need to understand these things because your job as an SEO is to prevent problems, especially as the site grows. So going back to the hierarchy and the structure and the organization of the website, don't think about it just from right now. How does it need to be structured? Understand the goals of the website. What are they going to be doing? What's their expansion plan? What are the things they're trying to expand into over the next year or two? And structure things, design things in a way that allows you to do and grow into those things without hitting tons of roadblocks and problems in the future. By the way, planning a new website is something that we don't think about as SEOs. I think a CRO is probably would think about this. How is the user going to be using the website? How is the site going to be used? What is it going to be used for? Is it going to be a very interactive website? Are there going to be pre-planned journeys? Understanding how the website is going to be used by the users can mean a lot for what you do, how you plan, and how you structure this website, and what input you offer to the site owner, developer, designers along the way. So that's also really important to know. All right, planning is done. Last one, tracking. You need to audit everything on a new website. I mean, everything. Because again, as I mentioned before, indexation is going to be problematic. It is problematic, and I think for newer websites, it's even more problematic. Really understand what's happening and understand it from not just, indexation point of view, but understand it from the performance point of view. Go into Search Console and see, what are you ranking for? Because often what you think you're going to be ranking for is not ranking for. Particularly the ONS, and this goes back to a new website, doesn't have that context. So Google may misunderstand you, for lack of a better way of putting it, which, by the way, might be a great thing, might be new opportunities. But you need to see how Google's understanding you, what's sticking and what's not sticking. Also understand what traffic and what channels are working. First off, a lot of these channels can help support your SEO efforts, but these channels are going to be supporting the website until your SEO efforts get off the ground. So understand the full picture of what's working. It's going to help you. It might just help you feel calmer about things, if anything, right? Search hasn't taken off yet, but we're doing great on Twitter and LinkedIn and wherever. Okay, I can catch my breath. We're not, my back's not to the wall trying to bring in revenue right now. Understand and track what's broken, audit, site audit, because understand what's not working, because on a new website, there are going to be things that are going to be broken. There will be blood on a new website. So audit the heck out of this thing. Constantly be auditing this thing and finding those problems, because again, it's a new website. And it's going, and as a new website gets out there and it gets going, changes are going to be made. Changes that you might not be aware of. Oh, a designer did this, and then someone did that, and someone changed this. Constantly be auditing that new website. One of the great things about a new website is, there's a lot of potential, and you can get to test and track things, especially if you set those expectations right. Site owner, hey, you know what? We're a new website. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's understand what's happening here. Again, it goes back to understanding the ecosystem. Sometimes Google's real well smart with stuff. Sometimes I've seen Google still has gaps. I've seen cases where if you put best in the title tag or best in the headers, Google will start ranking you for best whatever it is. Generally, that's not how it works, but sometimes you'll find some gaps, and it is kind of how it works. Point of order on that, at some point, it's going to be how it not works, or it's not going to be how it works anymore. That's better English. So you might want to do it in the short term, but keep in mind and track that and see when it starts falling off and get rid of it when it happens, because I've seen that happen too. And with tracking and monitoring and reporting, to quote The Last Crusade of Indiana Jones, well, it's not the last one, the fifth one now. That's going to be great. Not. Choose wisely. There's a lot to report on. You need to be very careful what you report on, because, again, it's a brand new website. The site owner, the business owner, or the man, whoever it is you're reporting to is going to be getting a ton of information coming at them, a ton of problems coming at them all at one time, which means you need to tread carefully and you need to prioritize the problems. I have done this a million times myself. especially because I love auditing content. I love offering content recommendations. And there are some people who are not content people, and they look at my content recommendation. I think it's really easy. And they're like, this is I'm not doing this. And they may not tell you that. They may just kind of like stop answering your emails real quick. You need to tread carefully. You need to prioritize the big problems, because a website owner on a new website is dealing with a ton of design problems, revenue problems, customer problems, all kinds of problems. And sometimes your problem is not the priority. So pick your battles. And that kind of means understanding who you're working with. What kind of client are you working with? What kind of site owner is this? Do they love data? Do they not love data? Do they need to be educated? Do they like long conversations? Do they like just quick emails? What kind of metrics move them? Are they visual learn? Whatever it is, you need to understand who they are, what they want, so that when you prioritize an issue, you're able. It's one thing to prioritize an issue. It's another thing to be able to communicate that in a way that it's received and internalized. So know thy client. And with that, we can go on forever, but we're running out of time. And we want to get to the Q&A. You can find me online if you have any questions about what I said today, or questions about anything or whatever it is. I'm on Twitter at Mordy Oberstein. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm even on Mastodon. Just an interesting experience. But I'm happy to answer whatever questions. And thank you very much. I really enjoyed presenting to you today. And now the awkward moment where I unshare.
Okay, thank you, Morty. It was super fun. It was so insightful, and thank you very much. We'll go ahead and take some time for questions now. Friends, just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the chat on YouTube if you have some. And so we'll start from the questions that our registered participants left for you before the webinar. So the first one is, what is the most simple and easy to use CMS for SEO efforts?
I don't know how I'm supposed to answer this. I will try to be as unbiased as possible. There are different strokes for different folks, different needs for different websites. From an SEO point of view, if it's a new website, things that you want to consider. If you're taking on a new client, I'll put my thumb on the scale on this a little bit, and I understand who I work for. You want to be able to offer max growth, particularly on a new website. And you need to find a platform that's going to offer you max growth. Is that going to be a platform where you're constantly fixing vulnerabilities and problems? It may not be. It may be a platform such as Wix where you don't have to do that, where you can focus just on growth assets. But you want to pick a platform that's not going to have problems, because, as I mentioned before, new website, lots of problems. You don't want to add more problems. Oh no, the site got hacked, or I added a plugin, now it's vulnerable. You also want to do things that are you want to automate your time. You want to make things that are to protect the user. Again, if you're handing this site back to the client, you want to make sure that you're going to hand it back to them, and it's not going to get mucked up in a day, right? All of a sudden they change a URL, and they didn't tell you, and now all of a sudden they have broken links, broken URLs. Okay, so I will say that we've done a really good job, and I'll use it as a framework, and you make your own decision. We've done a good job of trying to do things that make your life easier as an SEO, trying to automate things, trying to pull in data from Search Console. We're the only CMS that pulls in the Google's URL inspection API. And we try to automate things and protect things for users. So if the user wants to do a redirect, we often auto redirect it. If they go and try to do a manual redirect, we tell you if there's a loop or an error. So keep those things in mind.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. The next one is, what are the most important metrics to follow, and how to know we are on the right track?
That's a good question. Obviously ranking. I'm kidding. It depends. It depends what the goals are. It depends where you are. You kind of generally want to show progress on a new website. You kind of just want to show you're going in the right direction. You're not going to look, you're not going to be expected to come back, a month after, 2 months after launching the website. Hey, look at all the traffic we're getting. But you kind of want to show that things are going in the right direction. And that could be qualitative in what kind of keywords you're ranking for. It could be quantitative in how many impressions you're getting. But you need to offer a full picture on that. Oh, we're getting tons, but we're not getting any clicks. And you need to make sure that you're presenting a full picture on that, because inevitably they're going to realize, oh yeah, I don't want to show the click data. There's no clicks. Inevitably, they're going to ask you, okay, if we're getting all these impressions, where's all the revenue? Oh, there's no clicks. Oh, well, we have a problem that The title tags aren't properly optimized, or Google's rewriting them. We got to figure out a way to get around that. Offer a holistic 360-degree kind of perspective on things so that the site owner has a real understanding of what the data actually means. And pick metrics that are meaningful. Don't pick, we're ranking number 1 here. I can show you ranking number 1. Don't do that.
Okay. The third question is, what tools, spreadsheets, or others do you use or think can be useful to organize keywords on pages across a website?
When you're planning it out, when you're planning it out, it all depends on the size of the website. Often it's a simple spreadsheet will do, particularly on a new website. In search, you really want to double down on Search Console data and see what's happening per page, what keywords you're ranking for. You can export all of that and show that into spreadsheets. You can then see, okay, for this web page, we're pulling in rankings for, we're pulling in impressions or clicks for whatever. These keywords are kind of not on target for what we thought this web page would be. We probably need to adjust the content on the web page. I personally don't think you need to get too complicated with this in general.
Okay, thank you. And I'd add that Serpstat has keyword clustering tool that can help deal with this. Okay, and the next question is, how to choose the domain architecture?
Generally speaking, you kind of want to do that pyramid hierarchy, right? You have, the home page, and you go out to your main topics, shop, blog, and whatever, and spread out from there. That's my general recommendation on hierarchy. I would only kind of stay away from that. If you have a really simple website, you can kind of go with the flat hierarchy, which is also fine. The main thing I think you want to also make sure is that you're interlinking correctly outside of the hierarchy and the folder levels, so you can see Google can see what's going on there. But interlinking is a very, very strong signal to Google of what's where and what's on your website, and also being able to find what's on your website. So when you're thinking about hierarchy, don't just think about the traditional hierarchy. Think about interlinking as well as part of that whole mapping out the website.
Okay, let's go ahead. If the site consists of one page with sections, are there any specifics in SEO so that the page ranks well?
No, like you're talking about a one-page website. Let's say you're talking about on like a portfolio website. You have you're a consultant, and you have about me, the services that you offer. Generally speaking, with that kind of website, the breadth of the keywords that you're trying to rank for are pretty straightforward. SEO consultant in New York, or who is whatever your name is. There's generally nothing in particular you have to do other than having this website structured really, I would say naturally, normally. You have headers, you have, the headers makes it H1, H2s, normal text, it's that kind of website. It's really not complicated.
Okay, got it. Thank you. How can I monitor the progress of SEO on a PHP website?
You can monitor the progress, in any natural way you monitor progress in any website. You can search console, whatever it is. Like, PHP websites are a debate amongst SEOs for a long time. There's security issues, security concerns. There's always been this debate about the URLs PHP websites. There are some kind of benefits to it. My always thought about it has always been like, HTML, Java. Like that's kind of been the language that Google's seeing each and every day. Maybe you don't want to go with a more obscure language, but that's, I guess, your call. But there's a lot of contention about it for a long time in the SEO world.
Great. So what is the biggest SEO mistake people make with new sites? Interesting.
Biggest? Wow, like the single biggest? I think it's really not. I think it's like thinking this is easy. I think it's a mindset problem. I think, okay, like fine, it's a new website. How complicated is this? Okay, the launch and then whatever. And I'll do my little SEO thing. And I think when you get lost in your little SEO world on a brand new website, you're missing like almost the entire picture, because it's not about you and your SEO stuff. It's about what's going on with the website overall, and offering that input and structuring things in a way that makes sense for SEO and makes sense for the long-term health of the website. So get out of your little SEO bubble.
Great. I like the answer. And the last question from the Google form. And what are the 20% versus the 80 that must be done right?
I never like giving numbers like that. If I had to give like one thing and getting it right, which is, it's not like there's a million things you need to get right, and it's not an 80 or 20. But if I'm forced into this pigeonhole, it's getting that homepage right. Everything exists off the homepage. Again, as I mentioned, it's the page that's the link to the most. It brings in the most traffic, which factors the core web vitals. It's the page of Google's. It's kind of the representative of the domain. It's where you're going to have the links to your other pages on the website. So getting that one page right kind of speaks to the overall health of the entire website.
Okay. Let's switch to the questions from the chat. The questions from John. We use a WordPress subdomain for our news content because of problems with SquareSpace, which hosts our main site. Is this a problem?
Having a subdomain on another platform, I mean, no, people do it all the time. You can have your site on Squarespace, and then you have a shop, mywebsite.com, and then you have shop.com, shop my.mywebsite.com on Shopify instead, right? Or you have it on Wix or whatever it is. People switch that up all the time.
Okay. Here's a question from Ekaterina. Hello, what is the time frame for my new website to appear on Google if I do everything right for now, knowing it might be slowly?
It depends, right? I'll say, like, if you connect the Search Console using Wix, you instantly get your homepage indexed, right? So a lot of this is submitting your sitemap, connecting the Search Console, the interlinking, so Google gets that homepage, right? But then it's able to access the other pages that come along the rest of the website. If you're talking about ranking, I'll say at a averagely competitive niche, to start ranking will take anywhere between 3 and 6 months, as I mentioned before, to really bring in the traffic, level of traffic where you can really say, okay, this is going to work, and the site can start to rely on the organic traffic will probably take a year. But it depends, is the real answer.
Great answer for SEOs. Thank you. Um, okay, so and the last question for the session from Jordan. Hi, what WordPress SEO plugin would you recommend for the best results?
I'll just go to Wix. I'm just kidding. Yoast and Rank Math are the two most popular SEO plugins. It's pretty usually straightforward. There's all sorts of plugins they have for. You need to be careful of those, actually, for the ones that they have plugins that help you speed up the site, but a lot of them are really just delaying the firing of the JavaScript. So they're not actually really speeding up the site, but they just kind of get better scores, but you're actually trying to fool Google, which is never a good thing. So be careful.
Okay, great. So it looks like we've covered all of our questions. Mordy, do you have any points to add or highlight before wrapping up?
No, I mean, I always it sounds cliched, but I always, be careful with a new site or a site. Be very purposeful and very, very specific who you're targeting, what you're targeting, particularly with the content. I know there's a desire to try to bring in traffic and sort of like branch out with things that may not be topically relevant because you're, antsy and anxious about bringing traffic in. Don't be anxious. Don't be antsy. You have a plan. Stick to the plan.
Great, thank you very much. And as a final note, I'd like to mention something for our attendees. Please stay tuned for our future webinars and join our Serpstat chats on Twitter. It's not a voice chat; we're texting through tweeting in real time. We discuss all things related to digital marketing and, in particular, SEO there. There you can ask SEO experts questions about future topic. Also, you can share your expertise there. We host the Serpstat chat regularly on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on our Twitter. So join our Google Calendar to make sure you won't miss our future Twitter chats and webinars. I'll text you the link in the chat box in a moment. It's here. And the guys who will be watching the recording, the link will be in the description. This Thursday, the topic will be closing the keyword gap, how to effectively analyze your content, review your competitors, and build a content plan for 2023. I would be so happy if you join Serpstat chat as well. Mordy, thank you a lot for sharing your time, for sharing your knowledge. It was so insightful and just great. Guys, thank you for watching, asking questions, being here with us. Have a great holidays. And let's meet again at our future online events. See you. Goodbye.
Bye.